Well, good morning, sun worshipers. This is George McClellan at FetcherNews.com, North Georgia's only live online internet TV show. This is George's Hour from 10 to 11 with my opinions for what they're worth, but you're certainly welcome to comment. Call at 706-889-9700, or you could email me, George at FetcherNews.com, and we'll get a discussion going. Of course, the big news is the vice presidential debate last night. Gladly, hopefully, one and only. That was a disaster for the Democrats, and it absolutely reveals what I have said many times, and I've written it many times. When a liberal has nothing to say or cannot defend their position, then they scream, they get louder, they override, they get argumentative, and they cross-talk the other guy, and that's what we saw last night. Tim Kaine had a flurry of little sound bites that just overwhelmed the thought process of anybody at the other table. It happened to be Mike Pence. So you couldn't even argue one of those points without Kaine coming up and swamping you again. And that little girl who run that show, what was her name? Elaine Ogiano from CBSN, whatever N means. Elaine, now she was a beautiful woman. Cute, young, slow eyes, beautiful eyes. I'm being very sexist. She, I'm sure last night, auditioned for a part in the next slasher movie. I'm convinced of it. Because that's all she was good for. She is an acolyte of the left, and if anybody had any doubts whatsoever that the media is in the bag for the progressives, and this happens to be Hillary, that should have erased all doubts. Mike Pence, I thought, had stage presence. He looked presidential, of all things. He was controlled. And he collected and calm, and Tim Kaine was nervous, staccato, overwhelming poor Mike Pence with his attacks, and so that was a waste. The whole hour and a half was a waste of time and energy and people's money and everything. And so I don't want to see any more of these. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to see a liberal news person running one of these debates anymore. I'd like to see a radio talk show host run the debates. Somebody we've never even seen before. Now I admit that young lady, I've never seen her before. So I was taken aback. She lost control. She had no control over that, except when Pence was talking, and it was her turn to cut him off when he got to a point that was not good for Hillary, like her email server. When he started bringing up the email server, she interrupted. You have 30 seconds. So that's really good journalism. That whole thing is a waste of time. The best way to lose your enthusiasm for democracy is to talk to the average voter for 5 minutes. And there we go. We're on our way. What also brought up in that talk, Kaine brought up in an attempt to show us some achievement of Hillary Clinton during her time as Secretary of State. He mentioned she was the Secretary of State and responsible for getting Osama bin Laden. Well, even Obama took credit for that. But Osama bin Laden, let me tell you something. Osama bin Laden's big mistake, he didn't pay to play. If he had paid the Clinton Foundation, he'd be alive today. If he had donated money to the Clinton Foundation, he would still be alive today. So there we are. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you're an ignorant person, if you're one of those that you talk to and you don't understand democracy or how it works, then you might agree with the Tim Kaine at Salt and think, oh, he did such a good job because he just talk. What a waste. I'm going to read this. I think this is an article by a fellow named Damon Geller. I'm going to give him credit because he reveals a few points that we need to know. The title of his article is "The Election Has Already Been Decided." Listen carefully to my words, and we'll see how close he is to the truth or how close we are to agreeing with him. People get very emotional about major elections, and we see that now, particularly when it comes to how elections will impact their money, their earnings. The scary reality of our modern political system is that your vote doesn't matter when it comes to who's really in power. While there are many systematic problems in banking, taxation, trade, and monetary policy, none of these systemic problems changes in any meaningful way by who controls the House, the Senate, or the presidency. Where are we going? We're going to big banks, aren't we? Regardless of changes in party power, politicians don't hold the real power in Washington. The sad fact is, the election has already been decided, and the winner is the banking industry. At the command of the Fed, the Republicans and Democrats have done nothing in a generation to stop the Fed and the banking industry from launching us off the fiscal cliff. And neither will Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. So if you want to protect your savings and your retirement from the impending global crisis, and this man is not the only one who sees the impending global crisis coming, you'll need to do more than just vote. When it comes to money, there is no democracy or freedom, and there are no nations or citizens. Money is ruled by a plutocracy of financial institutions. That's the world banks, the federal banks, IMF, our Fed. One of them is already starting to collapse. That's the Deutsche Bank. We can talk later about that. They make the laws. They rule the world, and they may move or remove anyone that does not promote or support their agenda. As proof, just consider how the banks are now assisting the IRS, our American IRS, in confiscating bank accounts of innocent U.S. citizens and even reporting their own account holders to the police. Once more, in order for the power brokers to survive and achieve growth, they rely on the constant accumulation of new public debt. New public debt. Well, that's why we don't have a balanced budget. It's absolutely why we do not have a balanced budget in our Congress. In a monetary system where every dollar is created from debt, the system becomes a Ponzi scheme and only works until it collapses. This is illustrated throughout history as every civilization and every paper currency has imploded under huge debt loads and a systemic lack of solvency. A systemic lack of solvency. We have paper money. There's nothing to support it. Debt has doomed the nation, our nation, and the dollar. In January 2001, when President Bush took office and Republicans controlled the Congress, the national debt stood at $5.7 trillion. Within 8 years, the national debt had ballooned to around $11 trillion. That was under a Republican House, Republican President, Republican Senate. That was a doubling of the U.S. debt in 8 years. Obama came into office in 2009, promising hope and change, but did he really change anything in terms of our debilitating national debt? No, he didn't. He even doubled that. At the command of the Federal Reserve, our national debt will skyrocket to over $20 trillion by the time Obama leaves office, and that's just 4 or 5 months from now. In short, the Fed will have increased the national debt 5 times in the span of 2 presidencies, regardless of which party is in power. I have to say, Georgia's Senator David Perdue is aware of this, and he is combating this. My good friend Don Cole, who lives down in South Georgia, puts out an article from time to time, and this is one he put out a few days ago. Last week, Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina referred to freshman Georgia Senator David Perdue as a 2-year-old politician. The context of that reference was a series of speeches at the Senate floor about the budget process. Senator Perdue has spent months quietly working with his Senate colleagues to address the budget process. Then on September 28th, he scheduled the time for the freshman senators to join him. In his campaign, in which I happily participated, running for senator, he talked about the fact that our Congress needs to have a budget. Our country needs to have a budget. And it's not doing it. And he made a promise when he got to the Congress that that's one thing he would do, was attack that budget process and try to get it working again. In the fashion of a learned professor, he lectured the seasoned senators about the budget. He used plain, common sense language and just a few quotes. 4 words I have not heard since I have been here: we can't afford it. Perdue said that to the rest of his senators: we cannot afford it. Every time we spend, or every dime that we spend in our discretionary spending, is money that is borrowed. The basic process should be politically neutral platform that allows us to argue our differences out in the budget process, get to a budget, move to the appropriations, and fund the government by the end of the fiscal year. That's the budget process. I have to do it. The state of Georgia has to do it. It has a budget process required by law. My family has a budget process, but not our federal government. They spend money. Why? Because the Fed allows them to print it. The Fed prints it. Why? Because they're part of the international banking system who wants to control the world. And they don't care how they do it or what politician is in charge. Senator Perdue then introduced speaker after speaker to address the issue. Most speakers were in their first term, as is Senator Perdue. All had run on the platform of rebuilding the economy and getting the deficit under control. Like many before them, they discovered that the culture and philosophy in Washington, D.C. had no resemblance to the culture and philosophy of the voters who sent them there. That's a profound statement, absolutely a profound statement. The debt crisis was the driving force for David Perdue when he felt the call to run for Senate. He encountered the same culture, the same traditions, the same morass that every other newly elected senator encounters. Like the Borg on Star Trek, the freshman senators were told to obediently take their place in the Senate nursery. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. Come to think of it, that voice on Star Trek does have a resemblance to Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Don Cole continues. He says, as I watched the presentations, 2 things stood out to me. The first was the absence of a tirade against Obama and Harry Reid. While they were mentioned a few times, the focus of the speech was not on them. It was on everyone in the Senate. He was speaking to the other 98 senators. The second was that the speeches were all straightforward and common sense and not encumbered by hyperbole and political speak. The addresses were not directed to the Democrats. The addresses went to everyone. Freshman Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa said, quote, we can't keep spending money we don't have on things that aren't necessary. Washington can't even do the basic business of balancing our own budget. It might just take a complete overhaul of Washington, a way to help us solve this problem. Senator Perdue was clearly the leader of this group. He introduced each speaker. Each speaker thanked him for leading the way to get a serious conversation going. The entire colloquy lasted for an hour. Now, if you have time to invest in watching, you may have a sense that there is a spark of hope. The revolt in the Senate nursery may actually result in real, honest, positive change in the way our federal government deals with the budget, with our money, And I want to thank Don Cole for his observations there and putting it in such a short little piece, a little essay, because it just absolutely strikes home. And we are interested in how our government is run. Now, I cannot say the same for our congressmen. We have congressmen who promise the moon, vote conservative, defeat Obamacare, restore the budget, and yet we get up there and then we find that their conservative voting record has slipped down into the 80s, then the 80s and 90s, and they continue to vote budgets that support Obama and Planned Parenthood. Where did all this stuff go? Why did our congressmen fail us? Because when they first got there, they were told to sit down and shut up and do as they were told. And that's about it. So I'm getting close to close to a break time. So we'll see you on the other side. This is George McClellan, George's Hour on Fetch Your News TV.
Pizza Hut makes the best pizza in the entire universe, but they won't tell you that. I've been marooned on this planet for a while now. You are an impressive race. Your children know excellent hiding places. Your oceans aren't filled with lava. And you figured out how to combine a grilled cheese sandwich with a Pizza Hut pizza. Surely interstellar travel will soon follow. And then I can finally get back home. Round. Round like home. The grilled cheese stuffed crust pizza. Proof that no one out-pizzas the Hut.
I'm Sheriff Dane Kirby, and I'll stand up for you.
I'm Stacy Nicholson, Sheriff of Gilmer County, and I will stand up for you.
Stand up and speak out. No matter how rich, cool, talented you believe yourself to be, how you treat people ultimately tells all. I am Allison Sosby, District Attorney, and I'll stand up for you.
Hello, my name is Chad Watkins. I'm the manager at Larry's Body Shop. We are a family-owned and operated business and have been serving the North Georgia area since 1978. We are located at 1216 Progress Road in LOJ, Georgia. Our shop specializes in collision repair and we work with all major insurance companies. Larry's Body Shop is ICAR Gold, the highest role of training recognized by the collision repair industry. It is estimated that only 10% of collision shops meet these standards. Our shop consists of state-of-the-art equipment such as laser measurement system, down-drive spray booth, spot and MIG welding equipment. All of our paints are mixed on-site so that we can guarantee your paint to match every time. I know that having an accident can be a stressful event. We take pride in making sure our customers are satisfied with the repair of their vehicles. Our waiting area is clean and comfortable with free Wi-Fi and refreshing beverages. So if you're in an accident, stop by and see us at Larry's Body Shop.
The Chevy Model Year End Clearance Event is on at Days Chevrolet in Jasper with savings up to 16% off MSRP. Our biggest discounts of the summer. Save over $4,100 off a new Chevy Malibu, just $19,500. Huge truck savings too, up to $8,600 off loaded Silverado Crew Cab LT. Now only $33,500. Don't miss the Model Year End Clearance Event at Days Chevrolet in Jasper.
Better days ahead, Days Chevrolet.
Find new roads.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. This is George McClellan at North Georgia's only online live talk show, FetcherNews.com. You can contact me at 706-889-9700, or you can email me, george@FetcherNews.com. I'd love to hear from you. Another thing brought up in last night, another issue brought up in last night's debate was the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. And I have always called it the Unaffordable No Care Act, and that's exactly what's happening. People can't afford it, and you get no care. So unless you pay for it, and you pay for it out the nose. The Affordable Care Act is Barack Obama's signature achievement and the Democratic Party's most important legislative accomplishment in 2 generations. It's a total failure, and something Hillary Clinton, although she left the Senate by the time the Affordable Care Act became law in 2010, she worked for all her adult life. So why doesn't Clinton at least mention this great achievement as she campaigns for president? All she has said was that she will strengthen the Affordable Care Act and make it work. A look at scripts of Clinton's stump speeches since she kicked off the general election campaign on Labor Day finds the Democrat candidate almost never talks about Obamacare. She doesn't promise to expand it. She doesn't promise to protect it. She doesn't extol its benefit. She just doesn't even mention it at all. Clearly, Obamacare is in trouble. Enrollment in the exchanges has fallen far short of projections. They had anticipated that millennials would enroll by the droves and pay for the expense of the elderly, the elders, the seniors, and that has not happened. The purchasers of policies are the older people and in need of more care than expected. Major insurers are pulling out of the exchanges altogether. Premiums are going up. Deductibles are skyrocketing, meaning many are left to pay most of their health care costs themselves. So why? Well, it was all pre-planned. Anybody who put that thing together, the Democrats, and mind you, not one Republican in Congress voted for that act, not one Republican. Definitely not bipartisan, totally a Democrat show. But it was designed to fail. They knew that going in. What it was designed to accomplish was a single payer, government being the single payer, and there's a 16th of your salary, of your wealth, has been taken over or will be taken over by the government with single payer. Even on her website, Clinton proposes to defend and expand the Affordable Care Act, but she never talks about it. She promises a public option as well as a version of Medicare for all. With that single payer, she's talking about the government option, single payer. But she hasn't been saying that on the stump in the general election campaign. Instead, when Clinton speaks of health care, she speaks of making it affordable. As if they were not already a massive, coercive, far-reaching law called the Affordable Care Act, as if Obamacare had never happened. You don't buy insurance, you're going to get fined. Just fined. $2,000. And that'll be every year for the rest of your life. And anything you do after that, you still have to pay for it. Clinton gave 2 speeches on September the 5th, her Labor Day campaign kickoff, first in Cleveland, Ohio, and she touted her role in the fight for health reforms. But she didn't mean Obamacare. Instead, she was talking about her work as the First Lady in 1990. And the Congress in those days, even the Democrat Congress slapped that down. They weren't ready for that. She said, "I have spent my life fighting for kids and families. During the fight for health reform, some of you remember, powerful interests blocked our way. But I didn't give up. I turned around. I worked with Republicans and Democrats to help pass the Children's Health Insurance Program that covers 8 million kids today. It's called CHIP. And it was passed in 1997, CHIP, CHIP, 1997. And my kids or my grandchildren belong to that program. So what am I paying for? Later in Hampton, Illinois, Clinton said much the same thing, touting her role in passing CHIP, but saying nothing about Obamacare. The next day, September 6th, in Tampa, Florida, again, she said nothing about the Affordable Care Act. She did, however, repeat a line that she sometimes uses when she wants to create a healthcare system that works, which could be interpreted as saying she doesn't think the present system, Obamacare, is working. Well, of course it's not. And then yesterday, her husband told the truth. He absolutely told the truth about Obamacare. It's silly, he says. This is stupid, this system. And of course, the fire of hell came on him and he had to walk that back. But the damage was done. It's out there. When the Clintons tell the truth, you know it immediately. And he did. It cannot be walked back. It's here, always right here forever. On September the 8th, Clinton traveled to Kansas City to speak to the National Baptist Convention. Again, she said nothing about Obamacare. Also, on September the 8th, she spoke at the historically black Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she pledged to defend quality, affordable health care for everyone, but we're trying to get the cost down. That's an indictment of Obamacare. After time off for her illnesses, Clinton spoke in Greensboro, North Carolina on the 15th of September, where she tried her health care remark to her bout with pneumonia. And what she said that didn't seem very positive towards Obamacare. She said, lots of Americans still don't have insurance, or they do, but it's too expensive for them to actually use. So they toss back some Tylenols, chug orange juice, and they hope that the cough or the virus goes away on its own. That isn't exactly a ringing endorsement for Obamacare, is it? And that night, September the 16th, Clinton addressed the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute Public Policy Conference in Washington. She spoke after President Obama, and with him in the room, apparently felt the need to mention his legacy a bit more than she does on the stump. And she made the only explicit mention of affordable care found in a month of her speeches. Think of what we've achieved these last 8 years, Clinton said, with Obama listening. American businesses have created 15 million new jobs since the recession. 20 million Americans have health coverage, and no one has seen a bigger drop in uninsured rates under the Affordable Care Act than Latino Americanos. On September the 17th, Clinton spoke to the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation dinner in Washington, again sharing the bill with Obama. Her remarks were brief and included nothing about the Affordable Care Act. On September the 19th, Clinton spoke at Temple University in Philadelphia and said a few words about the CHIP, but nothing about, that's the Child Health Improvement Program, but said nothing else about Obamacare. On September the 21st, Clinton spoke in Orlando and said nothing about Obamacare. After that, Clinton took a break for debate preparation. And on the day after the debate, she spoke in Raleigh, North Carolina, and still said nothing on Obamacare. On September the 28th, Clinton traveled to New Hampshire for a joint appearance with her former rival, Bernie Sanders. One of them spent some time discussing this serious crisis in terms of primary health care, but it wasn't Clinton. Oh no, Hillary avoided that. On September the 29th, Hillary spoke at an early voting rally in Des Moines, Iowa. Nothing on Obamacare. On September the 30th, Clinton spoke in Fort Pierce and also in Coral Springs, Florida. Nothing on Obamacare. 1 month, 16 speeches, and exactly one mention of the Affordable Care Act, and that was because President Obama was present in the room listening. Maybe I missed a reference somewhere. Maybe Clinton plans to discuss Obamacare sometime in the future, perhaps the next debate, but don't count on it. But the point remains, when Clinton takes to the stump to campaign, her party's signature achievement is nowhere to be found. At Clinton's highest profile appearance in September, her debate with Donald Trump, moderated by Lester Holt, did not bring up Obamacare. Clinton could have mentioned it herself, but she did not. Remarkably, Trump didn't bring it up either. This is truly frustrating to Republicans who hope to make the Democrats' struggling and burdensome health care scheme a major issue in the debate and the campaign as a whole. But put aside Holt and Trump's omissions for a more fundamental question. If Obamacare is so great, why isn't Hillary Clinton talking about it? I'm just saying, just saying. We were talking about, I mentioned Lester Holt and that Elaine Mojo, whatever her name was last night. They're in the tank. Interesting article here. Political correctness, cultural Marxism discovers the networks. So even this is going big time. America today is dominated by a system of beliefs, attitudes, and values that we have come to know as political correctness. And I mentioned this comes out of the Frankfurt School. Frankfurt School was left-leaning politicians in Germany before the rise of National Socialism. And they had to leave Germany. They ended up in New York City back in the late 20s, early 30s, and that's where they took root. We can thank those thinkers for political correctness that is ruining us today. For many, it is an annoyance and a self-parodying joke, but political correctness is deadly serious in its aims, seeking to impose a uniformity of thought and behavior on all Americans. It is therefore totalitarian in nature. Its roots lie in a version of Marxism which sees culture rather than the economy as the site of class struggle. I've mentioned this many times and often in my essays. So here it is in another article that is now available to you on the internet. Unless Marxist economic theory, the oppressed workers were supposed to be the beneficiaries of a social revolution that would place them on top of the power structure. When these revolutionary opportunities presented themselves, the workers did not, however, respond. Why was that? The Marxist revolutionaries did not blame their theory for the failures. Instead, they blamed the ruling class, which had bought off the workers by giving them rights and has blinded them with a false consciousness that led them to support national governments and liberal democracy. My goodness, are we not seeing that right now in our own government? Hillary Clinton is attacking the top earners, saying they haven't paid their fair share. And I've heard, and so have you, we've heard they haven't paid their fair share for so many years. At what point is it that they pay it will be considered or safe to say, well, they have paid their fair share? Donald Trump, they go after him on his taxes, and allege he didn't pay taxes. Well, but he paid his fair share. How many jobs did he save by going bankrupt and then restarting those countries? How many employees are still out there thankful for working for Trump because Trump followed the law, did what was available to him, and declared bankruptcy? And the law says you don't have to pay taxes if you've taken a loss, and that's what he did. So, they keep hammering on the fairness of it. It's unfair. It's unfair. You know what's unfair is bringing in millions of illegals into this country who cannot earn a living, plopping them down in some town somewhere, or towns throughout America, and then having the locals pay for them to stay there, supported by free housing, free health care, education. It just goes on and on. That's unfair, and that has to stop. We have got to take control of our borders. Mexico takes control of its borders. They're building a fence between them and Guatemala to keep out what? Mexicans? No, to keep out the Hondurans and the Guatemalans. People who are trekking north through their country to get here. Those people, I feel for them. I don't want them up here. I mean, we don't need them. We do not need unskilled labor, people whose lifetime was picking bananas. We don't grow bananas in America, so we don't need banana pickers up here. But you know, they take a chance of getting their heads bashed in by the Mexican police and the army, the criminal elements who are bringing those people up, sneaking them in at least sneaking them to the border, have even attacked army units and killed some soldiers, and I'm talking about Mexican army. So you know, things are coming to a head, and I think that wall that Donald Trump says he's going to build, I think he'll build it, and I think an important part of that wall, is restoring the authority of the Border Patrol and the Immigration and Naturalization people to take those illegals and incarcerate them, not just give them a ticket and turn them loose. Incarcerate them, and then send them back across the border. Now, what do we have about violent? We have this problem about violent criminals. We do send them back across the border, and then we do it again, and then we do it again, and then we do it again. You know, in our jurisprudence, we used to have a three-time felony rule. You were convicted of a felony 3 times, then they would just lock you up in prison forever. That's it. You're a 4-time loser, and you went to prison, never to come out. Never to come out. You can live your existence in a little cell and 1 hour a day on a playground, and that's it. Or you can work in the fields. Anyway, it's time to head on the other side. We got some new announcements for you, so pay attention, and we'll see you in about 3 minutes.
El Rey and Ellijay. El Rey Mexican Restaurant. Family owned and operated, and a local favorite for families, parties, and meetings. Great prices, friendly service, and delicious Mexican cuisine. Patio dining available. Come sing in Carlos's Cantina every Friday 9 to 1. Eat in or take away. Same location for 14 years. Open 7 days at the corner of Maddox Drive and 515. North Georgia's favorite Mexican cuisine. El Rey and Ellijay.
Pizza Hut makes great pizza, but they can't tell you what a gift it is. I can. They took a grilled cheese and combined it with stuffed crust pizza. To think, I almost wasn't here to try it.
How did you?
It's not important, Jan. What's important is that I watched the sunrise this morning. Then I got to stand in a room filled with this pizza. And later I'll stare at the ocean. Or maybe I'll learn Russian. Or listen to jazz. Or try my hand at needlework, or open a door for a beautiful woman, or read a human interest story, or make dessert wine, or ride a wild horse, or experiment with watercolors. Eat every slice like it's your last, especially you, Doug. Especially Doug, right? You care about Doug. The grilled cheese stuffed crust pizza, proof that no one outpieces the Hut.
North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds. Come on in to view the area's largest selection of fine jewelry at North Georgia Diamond. All repairs and designs are done on site by our jewelers. And North Georgia Diamond has the lowest prices on loose diamonds. You can also sell your gold, silver, and coins at North Georgia Diamond between Walmart and Lowe's in East Ellijay. Locally owned by Bill and Allison Craig, North Georgia Diamond is your source for diamonds in North Georgia.
What you gonna do with all that junk?
Well, welcome back, fun lovers. We on the other side now on our last portion, and I wanted to talk a little bit. I've mentioned the Frankfurt School, and if you're paying attention or taking notes, I want to explain a little bit without getting too technical. We're talking about a school of political thought, a think tank that espouses Marxism, and now Marxism has failed everywhere it's been tried. And it's failing here. But these intellectuals who's never held a job except as a teacher in a college still think they have a better way of running a society, of controlling a society. It's called the social conflict theory. I'm going to talk about the social conflict theory. It is a Marxist-based social theory which argues that individuals and groups, and that's social classes. They have to break you into classes so they can keep you fighting with one another. Social classes within society interact on the basis of conflict rather than consensus. Black Lives Matter has been created for the very purpose of pursuing the social conflict theory, to have conflict instead of consensus. Though various forms of conflict, groups will tend to attain differing amounts of material and non-material resources. In other words, the wealthy versus the poor. More powerful groups will tend to use their power in order to retain power and exploit groups with less power. We're talking about elected politicians. Elected politicians. And they're toadies now, the left-wing media. Conflict theorists view conflict as an engine of change. And that's what Obama told us. I'm going to bring you hope and change, and I'm going to fundamentally, he said, change America. Since conflict produces contradictions, which are sometimes resolved, creating new conflicts and contradictions in an ongoing dialectic. In the classic example of historical materialism, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels argued that all of human nature, all of human history is the result of conflict between classes, which evolve over time in accordance with changes in society's means of meeting its material needs. In other words, changes in a society's mode of production. Government down produces nothing. It is a failure. And we have learned that through capitalization, that production increases, jobs are produced, people make money, they rise up out of their low standard to a middle class, and they're happy. But the Marxist theory means that government will control all means of economy and will provide you a job according to your ability. You will provide to the society, and to you, according to your need, we will support you. So you have lost freedoms, and it is inherent, it is a God-given right, an alienable right, that we have to be free, and men try it all the time and resist totalitarianism, and that's what we're talking about. The Soviet Union is our best example of people who have resisted totalitarianism and went to the gulags. They did their prison time. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who I mentioned yesterday, I think, is a prime example of a man who fled Russia. Well, he didn't flee Russia, he fled the Soviet Union. And I think he went back after the collapse of the Soviet Union. He returned. He lived up in New Hampshire or Maine, Vermont, one of those three states. And he wrote his great treatise on the Gulag Archipelago. Read that book. Get that book if you haven't read it. The Gulag Archipelago. It's absolutely a wonderful, wonderful book. Tomorrow, I will go into the Frankfurt School and give you some details on it without trying to be boring. I mean, admittedly, this stuff is boring. And and what I want to do is I want you to realize, in the light of our current political situation in this country, in the light of our current political situation in this country, how the Frankfurt School of Thought matters today, why it matters today. It's not old-time things out of the 20s. It's happening right now, right today, in our colleges and universities, on our streets. And we've got at least to have a basic understanding of how that is happening. And that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. In the meantime, I wanted to share with you my final remarks. And it has to do with the debate that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump had over a week ago. There was so much news happening that I did not get the chance to share my vision or my view on that debate, and I'm going to do it now. This is the debate and the unseen story. We've seen the video of Hillary collapsing and being tossed into her Secret Service car. We've seen the big black Secret Service bodyguard at hand with a syringe ready to puncture her with a dose of whatever. We've heard stories of her cracked head and how that came about, marveled at the rapid recovery from her little bout with pneumonia at her daughter Chelsea's apartment at 21 East 26th Street, apartment 4 in New York City's Flatiron District. And we've marveled at the restorative, life-giving properties of a swig of water from a plastic bottle, allaying the serious possible effects of heat prostration due to a lack of proper hydration. Oh, whoa. Did you know what else is at 21 East 26th Street? On the 4th floor. Now that building, each apartment in that building occupies the entire floor. So apartment number 4 is the 4th floor. What else is on the 4th floor? It is the MetroCare Home Services, Inc. Each floor of that building is occupied by a single apartment, as I said, except Chelsea's. Chelsea's apartment is co-occupied by the MetroCare Home Services, and it is the secret lair of Hillary's personal physician and pharmacist, and she is its only patient. By this subterfuge, all health problems of Hillary Clinton simply disappear. So we saw the video of her collapsing, being tossed into her car, but instead of going to hospital, she goes to her daughter Chelsea's apartment, where she has a miraculous recovery after a couple hours, and she says, well, I've got a touch of pneumonia. A touch of pneumonia. My God, a person at that age who gets pneumonia is flat on their back in hospital for a while. So what did we miss here? Well, we missed the fact that there's a health facility on the 4th floor in Chelsea's apartment. Rules were made in advance, agreed upon, and apparently enacted without dispute from either side, and I'm talking about the debate. Trump suspected his microphone went a little dicky, and it proved that it did, that it had been monkeyed with. He could have sworn that Hillary was supported upright by a broomstick behind her back, secured under her red pantsuit with tape. Hillary's commentaries made in response to Lester Holt's soft questions were particularly socialistic, lacking in substantive detail, all promising a utopia funded off the backs of wealthy earners who haven't yet, after all these many, many years, paid their fair share. America can't remotely even afford Hillary's brand of government. Besides, the Constitution does not provide for first-class and second-class citizens. She said that the rich make all this money and it should be shared with the people. Well, it is. Take the rich, Trump, for example. He builds hotels, staffs casinos, golf courses, and he hires and hires and hires a lot of people. I think he is sharing the wealth with the people. I don't know if you can buy stock in Trump Enterprises, but if you do, it would be your hope that you can make some money by investing in Trump. She said the rich make all this money and it should be shared with the people. The people who invest their own money in companies as stock market investors, they do so in the hope of earning a return on their profit. not simply scatter the money to the wind so the people can scramble around and grasp for their fair share. That's a totally communistic philosophy. It doesn't work here, it never has. It is the precursor to poverty, the handmaiden to crime, and the yellow brick road to enslavement. And we're on the verge of our whole country being enslaved by this odious philosophy that Hillary Clinton espouses. Hillary's plans cannot withstand the scrutiny of public discourse. That's why we saw that tawdry display by Tim Kaine in the vice presidential debate last night. He just showered Mike Pence with sound bites that the man couldn't even possibly defend because the moderator took the time to interrupt him when he was trying to explain a point. So without discord, without special favors, lest she quickly wither like the wicked witch in the Oz story, the Democrat Party is over anxious for voter fraud because they know that when exposed to the pure light of truth, their philosophies disintegrate into puddles of green mire. So Democrats become intolerant of legitimate citizens, call them deplorables. They demand reversal of the voter ID laws so as to allow the dead as well as the illegals to vote Democrat on the vain promise of free goodies for everyone. And they're pushing very hard to make that happen right now. And already we've discovered in several voting places, dead people have already voted. Dead people have voted early, and they're all lined up there. I expect to see more people go to jail because of that. The entire federal government cannot have been corrupted. There have got to be honest people still working in there. I'm waiting for the explosion in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Those people are so angry at Jim Comey for his perfidy. They should demand his resignation. Everybody should demand his resignation. Any jurist who fails to recognize that voter fraud, that a voter ID card is essential to electoral fairness, and strikes down voter ID law should immediately be removed from the bench and maybe tarred and feathered and ridden out of town on a rail. Photo IDs are required for thousands of other daily functions, but not for voting. That's a stacked deck against liberty and a vote for slavery. Where is the iron resolution once possessed by Americans, especially the first generation of American immigrants? We are in sore need of a backbone. And that's just telling it like it is. That's the truth. I tell you, it's telling it like it is. We do not. We got to get real. We got to restore our tea parties. Start attending your tea parties and start working to advance conservative principles. And please, my last word on this: do not any longer connect conservative principles with incumbent GOP politicians. Most of them, except David Perdue, that I know of, are in the tank. They keep voting for Obamacare. They keep voting for budgets that aren't balanced. They keep voting for money to support Planned Parenthood. Where did that come from? We need a conservative Congress. We do not necessarily need a Republican one. And the Democrats have long ago been subverted by Marxism, and they've got to go. But we need conservatives in there, and I don't care what they call themselves. They can call themselves the American Conservative Party, anything, but do not place your hope in Republicans anymore. It's just, particularly ones who are seeking re-election. Now we have another senator here, Johnny Isakson. He just made a major faux pas as far as I am concerned. And we've got to vote for Johnny, but not going to tell you what's going to happen. When Johnny gets in there, gets elected, he's going to claim he's ill, and Governor Deal will appoint somebody else, another Republican, to take his place and fill out his 6-year term. That will be the new junior senator from this great state of Georgia. David Perdue will advance to the senior position, but that's a name. As far as Mitch McConnell is concerned, David Perdue is way, way down on the totem pole. And that the man has the initiative the initiative to bring all the other conservative together, senators together, and announce that their pursuit of a balanced budget is in the works. That's a wake-up call to Mitch McConnell and the rest of those people. And we've got to carry on and pursue the truth. We have to pursue the truth, which is what I'm trying to do here. And if anybody has anything they would like to talk about or any comment they would like to make, it's too late to call, but you can certainly leave a message on for George at FYN TV, and I'll get it, and we'll talk about it. And I think we're at the end of the hour. Are we doing a Oscar pool today? Not? We're not? Well, anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching me again and listening, and I hope you take it to heart. So I'll see you tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's Thursday. Another beautiful day in North Georgia. That hurricane is going to do nothing to affect Georgia's weather, and we do need some rain. The Coosawattee River, you can wade across it without getting your ankles wet. So, well, what do I got? Another minute? Less than a minute? Well, I've covered a lot of stuff today, and I took some notes. You know, interestingly, I took some notes last night that immigration, I forgot to mention immigration. Kane and Hillary want to have a comprehensive path to citizenship. That means amnesty. Remember that. Trump, deportation, restore the Border Patrol and the ICE people, and we'll get that under control soon enough. We're done? We're done. All right, see you tomorrow.